First area I wanted to talk to you about was mobility. It's a huge topic of discussion. Any journal you pick up in the IT industry, it's with us everywhere. Sales of smart mobile devices, in IDC's estimation, this year will surge 20% to about 430 billion. At the same time, PC sales, traditional PC sales, including notebooks, will grow 1.7% to about 237 million. So SMDs are growing at a rate 10 times faster than traditional hardware and will achieve value approaching double of what that traditional hardware is generating for the current year. IDC also estimates that access to the internet via smart mobile devices will exceed PC access by 2015, so within 3 years we would expect that more people are going to be accessing via SMDs than via traditional hardware. Moreover, mini tablets will jump from 33 to 60% of the tablet market. So what is that telling us? In that sense, in that context, the mobile revolution has happened. Big data is also one of these things that you hear about all the time now. It's any sort of IT publication, article, you're going to see it mention of big data. You know, because we have all of these devices out there creating all these types of data, churning out all of this mountain of data, we have to store it somehow. So storage is part of that equation. And that's the part that we're never going to get away from. We're going to keep creating data at incredibly increasing rates. We have some statistics on how many zettabytes are going to be produced. And it's just, I didn't even bother putting it up there because it's hard to fathom what these numbers even mean anymore. The fact of the matter is that we were producing data at such a rate and such a velocity in such volumes today, it was almost inconceivable a few years ago. So the storage part of the equation is clear. We have to store it somehow. We're not getting away from that. It's only going to get worse. I'm not going to lie to you. The analytics portion is, what do we do about that? These types of devices and platforms that we're now seeing everywhere are creating different types of data sources. A lot of it unstructured, the type of which nobody has bothered to even address yet. In the BI analytics space, most efforts to this point have been focused on structured data sources. What we're seeing in the previous slide is a lot of unstructured stuff. So the question is, how are we going to address that? Where do we focus our energies, and what types of information would we like to get out of it to better focus where we want to, let's say, address the big data question and, you know, try to extract some value out of all of this data that we're forced to keep and store anyway. The question of access here in this discussion is, to whom are we going to provide access to this information? With all of this new data coming out and the new opportunities that it represents, it will necessitate a new type of analyst, a new breed of analyst, to try and make use of it and try and turn it into business value. So the question of access here in this discussion is, are we in a position to provide access to a new set of users, to a new set of types of information workers that can help us sort through this and make some value out of it? More than big data, cloud has been with us even longer, and it's discussed in so many different ways and contexts that you're probably sick of it. I am too. As much as I've spoken about big data, I've spoken equally about cloud. And of course, cloud is going to mean something different to each organization as well. Nevertheless, when I do speak about cloud, or at events where cloud is a topic of discussion, probably the most common question I get is, okay, we're convinced we want to go down the cloud route. We're going to start a cloud strategy. Where do we start? Which technology would you recommend starting with? Is it analytics? Is it security? Is it storage? Where do we start? And every time I've asked that question, my immediate response is, I refuse to answer that. I don't know your companies. I don't know what your processes are. I don't know what your infrastructures look like. Moreover, I'm a market analyst, not a tech analyst. So for me to answer that question would be negligent on my part. I can't possibly have the information necessary to advise on that. The greatest opportunity that cloud represents, in my opinion, is that it provides access to technologies that were out of touch before. Without all of the, let's say, financial, managerial, and political obstacles that come from implementing a traditional software package or technology, maintaining it, upgrading it, all of those things that are required, cloud bypasses all of that. So, when I'm asked that question is where do we start our cloud strategy, I always return with the question, what are those technologies that have always been on your wish list, or that would be wonderful to have, but we know we're never going to get it, because no one's going to approve the implementation of that and all the hassle that that may imply? That's where you start your cloud strategy considerations, because cloud does allow access to technologies that were out of touch before. And as such, that is what the beauty of cloud is, in that it provides the opportunity for access to these types of technologies that we otherwise know we never would have gotten. And then the last force of IT that IDC is talking about is social media. I'm just going to give you one example of how social media has changed the game with respect to the flu. Europe went through a terrible flu season this year. I'm sure it was bad here in Bulgaria. The Czech Republic, we had a terrible flu season, the effects of which are still with us. Similar in the United States, I think at one point 48 out of 50 states had declared epidemic status for flu this year. And each time this happens, public health agencies, doctors, healthcare practitioners struggle with how to deal with that, how to contain it, how to identify where the source of the epidemic is coming from, how to best spend our resources to address that and contain it. And the way that's always happened is, what you see there is that you get sick, you go to a doctor, the doctor makes a diagnosis, the doctor sends a report to someone who may read it. All of those reports from all these other doctors go to some central agency and are collated and collected, and somebody tries to dig through that and understand, okay, where is this coming from? Where do we need to best spend our resources? How do we attack this epidemic and prevent it from becoming even worse? The game has changed in that no longer is the access point to this process the doctor's office. Via social media that channels this information much more quickly and much more effectively to public health care agencies in a way and at a speed that we never could have imagined. And it allows different sources of information, more varied sources of information that allow for a quicker assessment of what the epidemic is looking like, what the situation is, and how best to react.